Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about Jimmy Kimmel Live back on the air last night. I'll get more into this at the end, but I think it's a really important, tremendous development in the broad context of the whole fight with Trump and the administration and their obvious autocratic ambitions. Okay, Kimmel himself. Gracious, as you could have thought, basically serious. But, he did say, first of all, that he felt he had been a little bit, let's see what the word, is. But he sort of made this clear already, but a little bit sloppy or whatever with the actual comment that got him in so much hot water. I just want to say again, MAGA has taken it as a criticism of Kirk, or potentially along those lines. What he said was MAGA is trying to disassociate itself from the killer. So I think, you have these, even as he's back on, you have a series of comments of like, okay, he's back on, but this is absolutely disgusting and it's terrible what he did, etc. And, make sure you call him out for that. To me, that's part and parcel of the kind of moral or fact here that like people are sort of losing their minds over this without real justification. But anyway, he absolutely says I shouldn't have said it that way. And obviously, if I hurt anyone's feelings, it was terrible, et cetera, et cetera. And and then just general graciousness. He talked about the speech that Kirk's widow gave at his memorial. He said, if you believe in the teachings of Jesus as I do, it was a selfless act of grace, forgiveness from a grieving widow, and let's really try to carry that forward. And so, he had a little bit of so that was the basic thing: graciousness, contrition for his the comment that got him in hot water, which I just said as an aside. I have a little trouble seeing why it is so deeply offensive to people, the very comment, and it feels like it's more just the mention of Kirk. But then I'd say most importantly, he skewered the administration. Why? Because of censorship. So he said, this show, meaning Kimmel Live, is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this. Couldn't say it better. And, that's really, I'm going to say it again. This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this. Or the converse, that if you live in a country that doesn't allow you to have a show like this, you don't live in a free country. You don't live in a democracy. You live in an autocracy, and it's really, really important. And it's not whether Kimmel is like the greatest comic ever. And then he talked about Colbert too. They pulled my friend Steven off the air. They tried to coerce the affiliates who run our show to take my show off the air. That's not legal. True. That's not American. True. That is un-American. Very true. And it is so dangerous. Very true. So, once they brought him back on, maybe he had to clear the comments, but there's just no doubt he was going to come in where it really matters and talk about government censorship. Oh, by the way, I've just stumbled onto his, terribly offensive statement. We had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. It just seems factual to me. And then finally, he did, and it is so appropriate, go after FCC Chair Brendan Carr, who is, He's the Ed Martin Jr. or the Emile Beauvais of the media. He absolutely just doesn't know the first thing. And he's come out of the box and just said, I'm going to violate the Constitution. I'm coming after you guys. You are sick. He actually called the remarks that I read out some of the sickest conduct possible, and then suggested Disney's broadcast licenses could be in jeopardy, etc. So, number 1 point, Kimmel back. Number 2 point, Kimmel gracious, but also talks about the importance of non-censorship. Number 3 point, Kirk and the FCC still there and trying to make trouble, obviously, and we'll see. They had promised, this was a sort of something they wanted to exploit in the wake of the Kimmel polling, just the mention of Kirk, that they were, Trump had announced a kind of reign of terror against liberal thought on the left. And that hasn't gone away. I mean, it's just an interesting point in general. They kind of, when I talked about this initially, I pointed out, and they, of course, are relying on this. There's a tricky First Amendment question, whether you can actually say it's government coercion or not, or they were just going along for the ride and clapping their hands, which they surely were. It was great that it happened. But now the kowtowing corporate executives have gone the other way. And so, now the question is, how's that play for Trump? Because it's funny, they will say in court, nothing to do with us, etc. But in the political sphere, he lost. He got beat. Kimmel's back on the air, still on the air. And whether that means he'll be trying to do some crazy, unconstitutional stuff to go after him through his absolute lawless henchmen at the FCC, Brandon Carr, and others, is something that remains to be seen. Okay, I just want to end with what I referred to up front about, I think this is a really important development. He's just been mowing things down one after the other. And why? Because Congress is scared and cowed, and because the court, when it comes time to the Supreme Court stuff, is going his way. And that puts you in mind of, when push comes to shove, what are the sort of war games here? And when you're thinking about that stuff, what you're really thinking about ultimately, you can't believe that that's what this is about, sort of like Civil War war games, but it is. You have Trump with Congress, with the Supreme Court, etc. But what about the people? Can he or can the people stand up enough to make things not happen? And to my mind, they tried to cancel Kimmel, and basically popular support, popular sovereignty pushed them back. It pushed back the industry, but I think it's going to be very hard now for Trump and the government to try to say you have to take him off the air anyway. And that means it was the force of popular support, same force that said, we're not going to give you your indictment in the District of Columbia. We think you're full of it. And other kind of popular pushback. And this is a big one. I think, when the history of the whole authoritarian efforts, hopefully unsuccessful, of Trump are written, you'll see this. And, why did the Bill Eisler and the guys who took him off just have a change of heart themselves and went to bed and thought, we're being too censorious? No, they got clobbered, including, the basic point. What the hell are you doing greenlighting this kind of censorship from the administration and depriving the public of Jimmy Kimmel? Whether you think Jimmy Kimmel's the greatest or not or whatever, this is what happens in authoritarian societies. Some comic displeases maximum leader, and he's, as I wrote, telling jokes in Siberia. So his reinstatement, I take as a really one of the best things that's happened in the last few months, and you can only hope for more of the same. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.